Welcome, welcome, welcome. So excited to be back here introducing one of my favorite people in the world. And I'm going to actually read this so I don't just take 40 minutes of riffing about Mitch. But I'm really excited to introduce Mitch Carter Jafery, the Chief Creative Officer of IDEO. She's also done a stint as the Creative Director at Palmwood, which is a design studio embedded within the government of the UAE. Excited to welcome her back to Cambridge, which she's called home for a long time. Here's her official bio, so I get all the facts straight. As an IDEO partner with over 20 plus years in the design industry, Mitch guides creative teams in bringing to life the emotional core of design strategies and concepts in visceral and sensorial expressions across mediums. She's focused on enabling ever braver design futuring work that is intensely human, visually iconic, and strategically pervasive. With degrees in both cognitive psychology and sociology, her focus is grounded in social and behavioral dynamics, cross-cultural trend spotting, human-centered design, brand strategy, storytelling, and a quest for the next global aesthetic edges. What's not in her bio is that I have watched her in one conversation speak new realities into existence and convince an entire room to go ahead and make those realities real. So very excited to bring her on stage and share with all of you how she does that exactly. She's also been who I learned design chiefly from for the last near decade of my life, so you'll see some familiar themes and thinking in this talk. I'll give you a little bit of a preview and introduction to frame what you're about to hear about. This talk is called Beyond Here Be Dragons, Rewilding the Imagination. To create the truly new, we must discover ways to break past the boundaries that subconsciously handcuff our thinking. Our new era demands a rewilding of our collective imagination, a refusal to accept the given reality of old societal assumptions, habits, products, services, and systems. Together, we'll explore 3 cognitive enchantment methods to help us hack reality and storytell compelling new visions that break past old boundaries. Class, please help me welcome Mitch Carter Jafery.
Thank you. Let me make sure this is working. Hello, hello. Hello. I'm Mitch, and I come bearing gifts from the creative wilds, beginning with an idea that sits at the heart of my design ethos. So as a creative director, as a voraciously curious global traveler, and quite simply just as a human. It's an idea that I want to lovingly gift to you all today, and you can try it on for size and see, does it fit? What does it unlock in you? What does it make you feel? Now, this idea was born in the age of alchemy and mystery. In medieval maps, the old myths would tell of a key phrase that would be scrawled in ornate type on the edges of the uncharted map. So where the end of the map would end. And it was the edge of the possible. It was the edge of understanding. It was the unexplored, yet to be mapped. An emergent space to be journeyed with a blend of bravery and rigor and grace. And so at the end of the maps, it would read, "Beyond here be dragons." This spirit, the spirit of the dragons, the place where there be dragons, is the beating heart of innovation and entrepreneurship. The ability to break past the expectations that handcuff a lot of our existing thinking and trap us in this current version of reality, in this version of the maps. We need to wander where there be dragons. So something a bit more like this, one of my favorite memes of all time. Very often a taxi driver will ask me what I do for a living, and I have no ability to describe it, and I try to show them a meme, and they think I am crazy. So, today, 3 enchantments, 3 gifts to help us see beyond our given reality and storytell compelling new visions that explore beyond the edges of the map. But first, a little bit about me. I'll be honest, when I first heard the phrase, "Beyond here be dragons," I was probably 15 years old, reading some like fantasy or sci-fi nerdy novel, and it hit at exactly the perfect moment. Because I'd grown up a very good little mountain girl in Vermont. So it's like straight A student, a devout Mormon, very, very serious kid. But of course, it was no surprise that this led to cliche teenage rebellion. I mean, I was a little pink-haired punk blasting 80s new wave music, and I was always mad, always, at the man. Now, to be clear, I don't think I knew who the man was, but the man was whoever was writing the rules of society, the systems of conformity, the agreement about how this all works. And to me, it often seemed preposterous. I mean, can you remember when you were a child and you first asked, why? Wait, why? Like, who first invented the idea of a college auditorium with rows that we sit in and you sit silently and I talk at you, and then at the end maybe you ask questions? Like, someone invented that. Someone invented the idea of a 40-hour work week, of marriage traditions, of like savings accounts, right? And so much of what we do is the odd and unconsidered continuing to do of what we've just always done. Having this realization as a little 15-year-old, good girl, remember, Mormon, Vermont girl, felt like an epic awakening. I remember thinking, oh my God, we are making all of this up. It could have been designed differently, and it still can. Oops, let me go back. And so the pink-haired punk of my 15-year-old days turned into a designer exploring the edges of design and futuring. So I was a coder kid in like the 90s heyday .com boom, and then now at IDEO, I've been helping design everything from personalized online retail experiences to circular products to digital entertainment and beyond. The goal always being to discover and design for new tomorrows that break old rules. And my most recent chapter, as Shreya mentioned, wherever she is, has been living in Dubai, building out a design and innovation lab that brings the worlds of design and government together. I mean, someone once called this, I love this phrase, social sculpting. This is design at its highest scale, imagining policies and spaces and systems and entirely new ministries. Because design is powerful. It invites us to escape the gravity of the present in pursuit of the possible. It liberates us from the baggage of, well, this is the way it is, this is just how auditoriums work, this is just how a talk works, and it invites us to imagine, what if it wasn't? What if it worked differently? So I'm convinced that our next era, and in fact the world that all of you will be building, will demand more than ever a rewilding of our imagination. So my gift to you today, as you go out into the wilds to wander where there be dragons, is 3 enchantment methods that will help you explore the great beyond. The Oroborus, the Fae, and the Shapeshifter. First, the Oroborus. I don't know how many of you are watching the latest season of Loki, which, by the way, is amazing, but the Oroborus is having quite a cultural moment. Of course, on the show, they call the Oroborus OB because they're way cooler than I am. But the idea of the Oroborus is that it was a primitive mythical creature that represented the idea of circularity across time and culture. So Norse legend would tell of the great serpent, Jormungandr, who would wrap his tail around the earth and eat it on the other side. Or early Egyptians who would use the Oroborus to represent immortality and the great cycle of nature. But the Oroborus is also a paradox. It's symbolizing the tense relationship between energy and atrophy, between the infinite and the finite, between creation and destruction. The issue being, you can't escape the loop. Reality, this is a quote, by the way, from David Bohm, theoretical physicist. All right, this is the cognitive circularity loop. Reality is what we take to be true. What we take to be true is based on what we believe. What we believe is based on our perceptions. What we perceive is based on what we look for. What we look for depends on what we think. But what we think depends on what we perceive, and what we perceive depends on what we believe, and what we believe determines what we take to be true, and what we take to be true is our reality. Whew! Okay, or for those of us who like it a little more shallow, one of my favorites of all time, Dave Eggers, told the story of an old fish swimming by. He says, hey, morning kids, how's the water? The fish swim on by. They turn to each other at the end and say, what the hell is water? That's cognitive circularity. So the Oroborus enchantment is about escaping the trap of innovating within a system versus zooming out and questioning the assumptions of a system. Breaking the loop. So how can we do this? 3 of my favorite ways, a gift to you today: unseen, reframing, and remixing. So unseen is all about the idea that to see opportunities more clearly, we first have to unsee all of our assumptions. And a technique to enable this is something that I call rule breaker, rule maker. And in fact, once for a workshop, I even made these like badges that had a cop symbol on one side and like a lightning bolt on the other, and we had to switch sides based on which role we were playing. So how it works is, first, you start as the cop, the rule maker, and you take any kind of a thing that you might be trying to design. Like, let's say you're designing a new hotel, and you list all of the rules, the unspoken assumptions of what is a hotel? What is my mental model of a hotel? So that might be something like, you check in at the front desk, the rooms are for 24 hours, you have to pay per night, they're for sleeping in, they're all in one building. And then you flip it over, lightning bolt style, become the rule breaker, and say, what would happen if I broke each one of these? What if there's no front desk? What if it's a membership, not pay per night? What if the rooms are spread out across the entire world? Or what if the rooms are in someone's house? You might have invented Airbnb. Okay, the second, reframing. Reframing is about the idea that questions are quests. And I know Shuya mentioned you had all done a class, I think, on how might we's, and ensuring that you make it not too big, not too small, but a question that was pregnant with possibilities, that was meaty enough that it would invite new realms of exploration, changing the entire game, not just making a new chess move. So the trick is to spend 10 times as much time refining your question as you do finding the answer. And a great way to do this is to become obsessed with the word why. I'm going to give you a quick example of, this was from a research project we did where we were helping imagine some new tools for teachers. So I'm going to give you an example of leap killing and then leap enabling based on the idea of why. So leap killing. All right, so I show this person my prototype. Tell me what your reactions are to this prototype. I would like it if it came in black. And I say, cool, thanks. And I go back and I'm like, okay, my big insight is it should be black. And my next prototype will be black. You have completely killed all ability to make a possibility around that. Leap enabling is about the 5 whys. Tell me what your reaction is to this prototype. Oh, I'd like it if it came in black. Well, why? Well, black just feels more formal. Why do you want this to feel more formal? Oh, well, I guess at the end of the day, it feels like everything in the classroom is made for students. There's nothing that's made for the teachers. Well, what does it mean to make something just for teachers? Well, most of us got master's degrees where we came here. We care about the science behind the programs, and it wouldn't hurt to have something in our lives that feels more polished and actually represents this. Now you got somewhere, right? Now the synthesis is there's an opportunity to celebrate teachers' expertise and honor their professionalism. And the next prototype is not just black, but it might like draw from the language of diplomas or professional terminology. I think of it as the why ladder. So you have to climb all the way up to the top before you come down and start answering the hows. You can't just go straight from, I have a question, great, I have an answer, because you missed all of the rich goodness of what's above it. One of my favorite examples at IDEO, we helped us switch some of the questions we were asking from things like, this was the initial client prompt, how might we sell life insurance to millennials and help them think long term? I mean, this is a tight little question. It assumes people want to buy life insurance. It assumes that they have the ability to think long term. And of course, in all of our research, we said maybe the opportunity is actually how might we empower millennials to understand their finances in ways that honor their fears and that feel, quite frankly, cool. So we ended up creating the Society of Grown-ups, which was a master's program for adulthood. And it was known for things like supper club series, where you'd learn about how things get better with age, learning about both wines and like some wine pairing and stocks at the same time. And it had a brand that was just overflowing with like delicious, beautiful goodies that looked nothing like old school banking. And finally, remixing. There's a concept in ecology that I am obsessed with called the edge effect. It's the idea that the richest biodiversity happens at the intersection between two worlds. So like where the forest meets the field. You see an abundance of new species of plants blossoming at this bridge. And the same is true for ideas. So one of my favorite examples, you see it all across society, is things like hip hop meets country meets queer culture, like Little Nas. Like that is edge effect. That was fresh, that was exciting, that was new. You can escape the trap of the Oroborus by remixing wildly different worlds together. And from my own work, I used the edge effect while I was in Africa, trying to design for the adoption of HIV medication. And we realized if we approached it just as a healthcare challenge, it would be met with resistance. But if we approached it as a cultural challenge and said, what if HIV meets beauty? Now you've opened up something new. And we had things like pill packages that looked like lipstick. So if someone saw it in your purse, they didn't think that you were sick. Or beauty salons where you'd actually get a checkup in a back room so that no one thought it was weird if you were walking into a beauty salon. We even had the idea, I mean, it was way too far, we couldn't do it, but of medication popsicles that would be cool and you'd like use them at clubs and raves before you go home with someone. And it was all wrapped up in this bold campaign called V. And I will give you one guess what that stood for. So ask yourself now, for the pitch that you're all creating around the company, the concept, what old rules and unspoken norms does your big idea question? Where might you be under-exploring based on your grounding question? And what might you remix to create an edge effect between worlds? Okay, second enchantment. The Fae. The Fae's name, in fact. Language is power. The old fables warn of never telling a fae or a fairy your name, because if they know your name, they can control you. But the trick is, travelers learned that if they were able to guess correctly the name of the fae, then they unlocked access to a new world, an entirely new realm. Easily, one of my favorite examples of the fae and the power of voice and language is the myth of the scream of siren Jibaro. So Jibaro would lure men to destruction with just the sound of her voice. And I'm going to hopefully play a clip, and it will be very loud and scary. Let's see where it goes. Power. Even the word abracadabra is not just about pulling rabbits from a hat. The word abracadabra actually comes from an old Aramaic phrase, which is abruk albabra. And it means, as I speak, so I create. Literally, the act of speaking it has manifested it into the world. That is the power of creative language. And quite simply, we struggle to even think thoughts that we don't have the words for. Beautiful quote by, I'm not going to pronounce his name, "The limits of my language are the limits of my world." And so I often think of naming and language as like the handle on a suitcase. Without the handle, you can't pick the idea up. You can't share it with someone. You can't move it around. It's not portable. And without it, especially if this is a new idea, if it's something that's strange or confusing or like breaks old expectations, the importance of creating that handle is critical. Of course, I always also have a shallow one, so this is for us meme lovers. Humanity, language, the inherently indescribable nature of the universe. Sorry. So to create new words, to create new worlds, we need new words. We need to create new words. Your job is not just to pitch an idea with clarity and data and evidence, but to conjure these new worlds and mental models that open the door to new realities. To storytell futures that ignite wildfires in the mind and create goosebumps on the skin. This is your job, to invite people in. So how can we do this? The wisdom of the Fae. Coin it, evoke it, arc it. Coin it? Sometimes it's just as simple as literally giving it a name. So things like the sharing economy, solar punk, streaming. Someone coined this word and created an entire genre. The donut model, B Corp, design thinking, for example. So like the Fae, if you name it, you've created the dotted line around a new land, a new world that you can invite people into. Or, rather than literal naming, you can evoke it. When I first heard this phrase, it terrified me, and I've been trying to disprove it, and I have been unable. We can only understand new ideas in relation to ideas we already know. But the trick, the hack around this, is that metaphor can ghost right past the rational brain. It can speak to a deeper truth. You get it immediately, and you understand it deeply. So when pitching the idea, for example, of an entirely new ministry in the UAE called the Ministry of Possibilities, I used the metaphor of a flock of birds. And I spoke about the idea of murmuration and finding flow in improvisational flight and being able to react to each other in real time. And the idea that in this ministry, rather than just having fixed employees, groups would swarm in from across different entities to tackle the impossibilities of government and then return back to where they came from. And you may think, okay, adorable, but poetry, isn't that a little like woo-woo for pitching a government a big idea? This is exactly what made it stick. They walked away from that meeting thinking about what if we were like birds in murmuration and flight. Or another example is some work we did for the American Refugee Committee. They came to us and said, I don't know, it's just there's something not right about our name, our feeling, we're not igniting the feeling we want. And we said, what if you stopped describing your function, I'm an American Refugee Committee, which was the top left image, and you described the feeling of what you're creating. You're helping people become a light. You're giving them the energy and lightness of a possible new future. And so we created an entirely new brand and even like new swag for what they wear out in the field, which is significantly cooler, along with the tools for people on the ground to carry on that feeling of being a light. And then finally, arc it. Stories are how we are naturally wired to connect and to understand each other. And that's one part story. So is your idea good? Is your concept interesting? Are you highlighting the most important points? But it's one part telling. Are you introducing conflict? Are you introducing drama? Are you helping me feel it with a personal story? So I'm going to let, if the video allows, it's a little bit of a longer clip, but I swear it's worth it. One of my favorite authors, Kurt Vonnegut, tell you about creating a narrative arc to your story.
This is the GI axis, good fortune, ill fortune. Sickness and poverty down here, wealth and boisterous good health up there. Here's the very middle. Now, this is the BE axis. B stands for beginning. E stands for electricity. Now, this is an exercise in relativity, really. Is the shape of the curves is what matters and not their origins. So we'll start a little above average. Is why get a depressing person? We'll start... The whole thing, we call this story Man in Hole, but it needn't be about a man, and it needn't be about somebody getting into a hole. But it's just a good way to remember it. Somebody gets into trouble, gets out of it again. People love that story. They never get sick of it. All right, not copyrighted. Another story, also a beautiful curve and easily fed into a computer, called Boy Gets Girl, but it needn't be that. Just a way to remember it. Start on an average day, average person, not expecting anything to happen a day like any other. Find something wonderful, just loves it. Oh, God damn it. Got it back again. People like that. Now, these are beautiful curves, and this gets a little complicated. Computers can now play chess, so I don't know why they can't digest this very difficult curve I'm going to draw for you now. And it so happens that this is the most popular story in our civilization, Western civilization. As we love to hear this story, every time it's retold, somebody makes another $1 million. You're welcome to do it. Now, surprisingly enough, I've said it's depressing. You know, people don't like stories about below average days and people. But we're going to start way down here. Worse than that, who is so low? It's a little girl. What's happened? Her mother has died. Her father has remarried a vile-tempered, ugly woman with two nasty daughters, big daughters. You've heard it. See? Anyway, there's a party at the palace that night. She can't go. She has to help everybody else get ready. She has to stay home. Now, does she sink lower? No. She's a staunch little girl, and she has had the maximum whack from fate, which is the loss of her mother. She can't go any lower than that. Okay, so the fairy godmother comes. Gives her shoes, gives her stocking, gives her mascara. Gives her means of transportation, goes to the party, dances with the prince, has a swell time. Boring, 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 boring. Now there's a slight inclination to that line as I've drawn it because it takes perhaps 20 seconds, 30 seconds for a grandfather clock to strike 12. Does she wind up at the same level? Of course not. She will remember that dance for the rest of her life. Now, she poops along on this level till the prince comes, the shoe fits. She achieves off-scale happiness.
All right, so all stories, from Black Panther to the pitch deck that you are creating now, follow those same 4 C's. There's a sense of context. This is the problem, the opportunity. There's conflict, the personal story that you tell, the drama, the insights that you reveal. There's a climax where you're like, don't worry, here's the big idea, and here's how it's going to solve everything, and now the closure. And this is the new world that will be created by my beautiful idea that will change everything. So ask yourself, for the pitch that you're creating now, what will you coin? How can the language, not just the idea, be creatively contagious? What metaphor could help unlock deeper meaning as you explain it? And finally, where is the drama? Where's the storytelling? Are you taking me on a journey? All right, so the final enchantment, the final creature from the wild, the shapeshifter, and imagination infrastructures. So shapeshifters, or changelings, which is the most beautiful, juicy word of all time, a changeling, are masters of fluidity. They can shapeshift between with just like the wink of an eye. So this image is actually of the tanuki, which is a Japanese myth of a creature that was half raccoon and half bear. And it could shapeshift at will. It could turn into a tea kettle. It could turn into another animal. It could turn into a rocky path and trick you as you were walking by. And you literally cannot make this up. The way that it would do this is by using and shaping the size and power of its enlarged testicles, which are the thing that it is throwing over its shoulder right now, which is crazy. So shapeshifters are often these very like jovial, mischievous characters, the tricksters of mythology. But the shapeshifter enchantment is not just about changing form. It's about the wisdom to be able to spot and unfurl possibilities beyond the present. So to be able to create the conditions that allow you to step into a new version of something. There's a beautiful myth from the Middle Ages that tells the story of the time between wolf and dog. So this is the time, the sun is setting, it's dusk, you're looking out on the horizon, and you can't tell from a distance, is that a dog? Is that a wolf? Should I run? Should I call to it? Should I open up my arms? It's existing between states. It's like the like Schrodinger's cat of mythology. The French call it entre chien et loup, right? The state of becoming, the state of between. So creating the imagination infrastructure that allows your idea to become, not just to be. That could be the culture, it could be the team, it could be the experimentation, it could be the evolution. Because ideas are living things. And there's nothing that kills the potential of an idea more than taking it like a butterfly and like pinning it down on a board and suffocating it, saying it's done, I have my idea, check, the end. Ideas need, just like that time between dog and wolf, the oxygen, the opportunity to grow, to change, to shape-shift into something new. So how can you enable this? Invite play, get scrappy, and build some trust. Okay, so first, play. And I know play can actually be a triggering word for those of us who are a bit more rigid and might roll our eyes. But the biggest mistake that society has ever made is abandoning the spirit of play in our childhood. Because play is not just about having fun, right? So play is, there are rules, there's goals, there's constraints, there's tension, there's collaboration. Play is the spirit of exploration and possibility. I love this quote from Carl Jung: "The creative mind plays with the object that it loves." And IDEO has taken this idea so seriously, we even created a play lab inside IDEO that is enabling the idea that play is not just about creating new toys and new products, which, by the way, they do, but also helping unlock new kinds of behaviors by inviting people into play and inviting new kinds of opportunities. I will let John Cleese tell it, or maybe in the...
Nothing will stop you being creative so effectively as the fear of making a mistake. Now, if you think about play, you'll see why. True play is experiment. What happens if I do this? What would happen if we did that? What if? The very essence of playfulness is an openness to anything that may happen, a feeling that whatever happens, it's okay. So you cannot be playful if you're frightened that moving in some direction will be wrong, something you shouldn't have done.
Think about how people like Walt Disney played. I mean, he started off literally just as an animation house, someone drawing a picture of Bambi, and then said, wait, what if it's a theme park? And then what if it's a residential space where people are now literally buying property to live inside Disney because they love the idea so much? That's play, that's evolution, that's allowing something to have the oxygen to grow. Second, get scrappy. The goal of experimentation is not perfection, that's why it's an experiment, it's discovery. So when IDEO was working with Sesame Street, we were designing a new app that was about kids being able to control a monster that could dance, and we wanted to be able to prototype, where should we put the buttons, what are the different interactions, is it fun to do? And sure, we could have coded the whole thing and put it in front of kids and got feedback, but instead we were like, let's just do a giant cardboard cutout of an iPhone. By the way, you can tell from how old this iPhone is. This is like a dated story. I apologize. And prototyped it that way. Let me play. Come on. Oh, no. Try one more time. Forget it, it's really awesome. He dances and then comes out of the iPhone at the end. Spoiler. Another example was some work we did with an online retailer who was trying to imagine what would it be like if you could try on clothes virtually in a really easy way. And my coworker Danny decided to, let me play it again, just use literally a green sweatshirt and a Zoom background that saw it as a green screen. And he was then able to try on different versions of the sweatshirt in real time, in 5-second hack, right? But it got the idea across, and now we're talking to the retailer about more. And then finally, building trust. So a lot of my work while in Dubai was not just about creating new products, new services, new systems, you name it, but about building the creative culture where trust and freedom and creative expressiveness was possible. And especially, imagine this is government, and this is government in the Middle East. There's a certain level of expectation and formality and almost facade that you've built up to be able to be in that role. And so creating this design lab was all about how can we peel back those expectations and let people express themselves in new ways. So one of the examples that we did to build trust and to build a creative culture was this weekly challenge that we called SASU. And SASU stood for Saturday, Sunday mindset. That feeling on the weekend when anything is possible, there's no pressure of time, there's no deadline, there's just a time to have fun. So SASU would be when we gave each other ridiculous creative challenges. It would be something like, you have 1 hour, design a restaurant for ants and pitch it very seriously, the business case, the modeling, how it would work, your messaging strategy. Or this one was, take your most personal fatal flaw, hers was spacing out, apparently, and design a luxury accessory that you would wear to help you design against this fatal flaw. And it didn't really matter what the challenge was. This was like a creative gym. This was an exercise for your mind, and it was a way for each other to build trust and drop all those facades of formality. I mean, even the branding of the studio itself immediately screamed, this is nothing like government as you've seen it. It was called Palmwood, and it had this evocative, expressive sensibility that said, you're stepping into another world where you can be a different version of yourself here. So ask yourself, for the pitch that you're creating now, if I squinted at my idea from a distance, like the time between wolf and dog, what could it shift into? How can I enable the creative conditions for it to forever evolve? And how can I build a feeling of camaraderie and trust and play that will allow for creative freedom as it continues to evolve? All right, and so we begin, so we end as we began, back at the old maps, back at the edges of the known world. It was a whirlwind journey, right, to the great beyond, and I truly hope that these 3 enchantments will keep you company As you go out and you explore where there be dragons, there's the Oroborus, escaping the cognitive circularity, the Fae, helping you create these new names for these new worlds, and the Shapeshifter, and creating imagination infrastructures that allow perpetual evolution. And if you forget everything else I said, which you will, it's fine, I forgive you, just remember this. Someone made it up. Someone made it all up. Someone made all of this up. And you can make it up again. You can make it up again. And you can do it with more beauty, with more heart, with more care, with more bravery. Here's to your creative rewilding. Thank you.
We're gonna get this mic on. Thank you, Mitch. That was
Of course,
wonderful. We're gonna get a mic passed around the audience for any questions that might be floating around, so that we can further question our reality, which is always fun to do. Always fun to do in this space. Meanwhile, while we get that set up, I got some questions from the class, from Slack. Thank you all who threw stuff in. I'm going to ask some of them while we wait for the mics to be passed. How do we do it? I was like, do we do chairs?
I didn't
I was like, yeah, we're just going to walk around.
I'm not looking for my good side.
Fantastic. Okay, questions. Most asked question from the Slack channel. You talked a lot about process. What is the most difficult part of the design process for you?
I think it is navigating the balance between creating possibilities and making choices. So the design process, I mean, you guys have probably seen the map. It goes from like, early on you create a bunch of concepts and then you go out and test them, and you have less concepts than you test them, and then you refine it and you get tighter and tighter and tighter. But those are two completely different muscles, right? One is about what is possible, anything is possible, I'm so excited. And the other is about like, critically, let's analyze this and let's make decisions and let's prototype it. And different people are good at different parts, and it's very hard to be able to hold both at the same time. So my advice is always like, be in the moment of expansion if you're in the moment of expansion. Don't start pre-anticipating what I'm going to cut later if you're still brainstorming. Or if you are cutting, like, don't let go of that beautiful idea even if it was your favorite. It's not meant for this world. Like, tighten it and keep moving on. So that kind of like elastic band tension is really, really hard, I think, to navigate.
How do you find creativity in your day-to-day life? Going back to that Dave Eggers quote, you're a fish in water because you literally have this job of being creative all the time. How do you stay personally inspired?
Oh, I love this question. So to be inspiring, you have to be inspired. It is literally part of your job to be eating up the world with all of the things that it gives you, the like weird palette of like we were talking on the walk-in, of a leaf on the ground in fall. Like I will eat it up, I will snapshot that, and later when I'm concepting something, I'm like, ooh, what if I use the palette from that walk that I took in Cambridge on that fall day? I'm literally cataloging them. And I've trained myself to be like a voyeur and a collector and a perpetually curious person, even creating systems. Like I have this app, like one of the list apps on your phone, and one of my favorite lists in there is just called Idea Soup. And anything I want to like put into the soup of ideas that I collect as I'm going, I'm like, ooh, it looks like, I don't know, kids are wearing really baggy pants right now. What's that all about? Is this like a craving for comfort in a moment of scarcity? And I'll put like baggy pants equals new identity as like a line item. And then I'll go on and watch a weird 1970s movie and be like, ooh, day glow patterns and the comfort of 70s feels like it's the thing we're craving. Like, and then I'll go back and look at the soup and look at all the weird ingredients I put in there and say, what if I like mash 5 of these together? Like, is that a new concept for a ministry of comfort in Dubai? Or I don't know. But I think you have to train yourself to collect, and you have to create systems to organize the goodies that are coming in.
I love it. Ministry of Comfort is the sibling organization to Ministry of Supply. We'll go pitch that in Back Bay. It's great. Just hang out in your pajamas. Okay. Anything in the crowd that I've missed? It's not a hand raise. Okay, great. Another one. Spicy one. I promise this is not from me.
God.
Actually, it is from the channel. Not that spicy. I got another spicier one. We save that one for later. How do you feel about the role of human creativity in the age of AI?
Ooh, I love it. I mean, you won't be surprised that I'm like, this is a false dichotomy. It is not about human versus AI. It's about the collaboration between. What I love is imagining, and I had this conversation with someone who was working at Warner Brothers Music, and they were trying to design the systems around how could artists use AI as part of the process, but allowing people the different pathways of choice within that. So there's one pathway of, let's say, the masters, the like Holly Henderson or what's Elon Musk's wife's ex-wife? What? Right, Grimes, right? The masters who are like, I will use AI to unlock a totally new realm of creative possibilities as an artist. That's like tier 1. Then there's tier 3, which is the traditionalists who are like, I don't want to touch AI. I'm Bob Dylan. I want to just like play my guitar forever. And the industry needs to protect their ability to be purists. And then in the middle is going to be a bunch of like, I used AI to write a jingle for a McDonald's song, and there's going to be a lot of it, and it's going to be super mediocre, but that's also the way life is now. And so thinking instead of like, what is the answer to creativity and human interaction? It's more interesting to break it into its parts and be like, what will be the simultaneous streams of interactions that will dance together, and we'll need to have new legal requirements and protections and whatever for the person who doesn't want their music to ever sourced, all the way up to Grimes, who was like, I've released my voice as an AI, please go make music on it, but using it, and like, I will give you equity based on it. Like, they will exist simultaneously, the same way there's like iPhones and Oriental rugs right now. Like, futures overlap simultaneously.
I'll do a follow-up on that, because also related to this question. How do you stay, this is such a strange question to ask, how do you stay up with the future? How do you catch up to the future?
Oh, okay, that's another myth, is that there's like a future, and we have to see it and catch it. There are multiple futures spreading like a possibility out in front of us, threads. Anyone watching Loki, by the way, because like this is the best description of time ever. There's like a time quadrant thingy. Okay, so there's multiple futures, and it's about not anticipating and then pulling it towards you, but deciding which future you are going to help manifest. Like, which one will you feed so that it gets bigger and comes to life? So all of you, for example, are going to feed a future, I'm guessing, of business and economy that's more connected to planetary consciousness. You will feed that future, and then it will come to be. You're not like, oh, I wonder what the future will be of how climate and business interact. You have the agency to affect it and to pull it into the present.
In places where it feels taboo or very not traditional, to be a little bit on the creative side, to be a creative, to be an artist in a workplace, in a boardroom, in a meeting room, how do you Trojan horse your way in? You've talked about that already. How do you show up as the fullest version of yourself?
Okay, so you all probably have heard the phrase, if you can't see it, you can't be it, right? Like if I'm in an organization and I look up and there's no female leader or no one who looks like me, I'm like, oh, this organization's not for me, and that's not going to be allowed and encouraged. While that is true, there's also a recognition that you could be the person that other people look to as, oh, there's an example. So when I first moved to Dubai, I had this existential crisis around how should I dress? And should I like reveal my tattoos? Or should I like speak up? Or what is it like to be a woman in the Middle East? And I started making myself small under the incorrect assumptions of what they wanted me to be. And pretty early on, I asked one of the leaders there, I was like, should I become you to help you move? Or should I be me and coax you towards this new version? And he was like, be resolutely yourself. if I wanted more of us, I would have hired us. And your job is to like walk in here with tattoos and talking about like weird witchy mythology and open up some new possibilities for us. And honestly, like the funniest thing now is like, even my Instagram account is filled with all of these like Emirati women in government who follow me as I go to like queer Bollywood clubs in LA. And are like, what is this? What is this opportunity of being a woman like that? Like it's become a model for them of a different way of being that gives them permission. They can choose it or not. I'm not like trying to persuade anyone, but having the awareness that you too are an example for other people, and it's your like responsibility to step into yourself to be that.
It's amazing. You can follow her at Miss Mitch on Instagram at IDEO. Also look at queer Bollywood parties in LA.
Yes,
you were my person to look up to and realize that I could be someone like you, so thank you. I'm not going to cry on stage. All right, rapid fire, last 2 questions. You can answer them in whichever order you want to in case you need to think about one of them while you talk about the other one. The 2 questions are, if you could time travel back to the age and stage of where these folks are right now, college, grad school, what would you say to yourself if your one piece of advice was delivered to you in the format of a fortune cookie? So it cannot be that long. And why is that the piece of advice you would give your former self sitting in this stage of life? The second question, in case you need a little bit of time to riff and think about that, is what are the 3 things that you would love to design? And in what order, if you have a specific order?
Okay. I hope this is fortune cookie worthy. There are 2 phrases and they're related. So let's pretend it's both sides of the fortune cookie.
Right, yes, you can have numbers on the other side, that's fine.
One is from Joseph Campbell. If you can't tell, I like love mythology. And one is from, I have no idea. But they've been things that I hold true to my heart and have guided my ability to grow. The first is, everything you want is on the other side of fear. And the second is, fight the dragon, get the gold. And it's the same thing. It's like whenever I find myself at a crossroads and I'm like, ooh, I could make the hard choice and it'll be scary and I'll have to give a talk in front of Harvard or whatever, or I'll make the easy choice and I'll say no and I'll decline. Your muscles either wither or they beef up because you just went to the gym, right? And so, like, everything you want is on the other side of fear, and fight the dragon, get the gold.
Oh my God, I wanted a t-shirt. The dragons get the gold. Okay, the 3 things you would design.
Oh, 3
and in
things
what order?
I want to redesign.
In case you're thinking and you need a little bit of time. Mine is a toilet.
Capitalism?
Oh, capitalism. Okay, starting big.
What would I really like to design? I feel like we are at a crossroads where the global South and the voices of those who are not Western are finally being taken seriously. And I want to be part of a movement to help those voices be seen and heard. So whether that's in the art world or in literature or in you name it, like, I want to help redesign the balance of whose voices are being heard. That's one. So capitalism, voices from the global South, and I don't know. Let me find like a really fun one. I would love to do something with pets and animals. I really think that we will look back on this moment in society and be like, can you believe we like did that to animals in our food system, or we did this, or we ate them because now we can grow them, or so.
Love it.
I think there's an ethical obligation to reimagine our relationship to animals. That's it.
Speaking those 3 things into the universe, and I don't know, we'll be back next year where you're like, so I've done the 3 things, it's done, capitalism is solved. All right,
Done.
Thank you all so much, and we'll see you back on Tuesday
Thank
for
you.
class.